Okay, hello to everyone. We'll just wait for a few more people to turn up. Just thought I'd do an impromptu Q&A. I'll just put the link over on my Facebook page. Have a look at VK3YE Radio Books at Facebook. Good that we've got 4 people on, so hopefully that number will increase further. And I will. A few people wonder, they only occasionally get me live. This time is probably a good time for the United States, Sunday evening. So Sunday afternoon, maybe in some places. So yeah, hello to Peter and WA3MCK as well. Good to have you on. And yeah, I'll just type something in the Facebook. Okay, Hayden, who is your favorite YouTuber? Well, let's see. You'd be pretty much up there. There's quite a few, there's so many, all different facets of amateur radio. W2AEW is pretty amazing with the in-depth technical material he produces on the construction side. Charlie Morris, ZL2CTM. Haven't seen very many videos lately, but he's had some great deep dives into homebrew bits and pieces he's put together. Here in Australia, there is the Art of Engineering, VK3YE, and there's quite a few. Now, of course, I've been doing quite a few surveys on my YouTube channel. Just have a look on the community tab. And there's quite interesting to see some of the results. I'll talk about those a bit later. And Ham Radio DX, local radio club, is doing fox hunting. Well, I suppose I've been doing a few videos on fox hunting. I did a video on a fox hunting transmitter. If you are a radio club and want to, I haven't brushed my hair. Oh, doesn't matter. Little fox hunting transmitter. You can get little UHF modules on 433 megahertz, and that can go for a few hundred meters. If you are a hunter, so you need some way of tracking things down. Well, 2 things you really need. You need a directional antenna so you can zero where you are, try and get directions. Like a 2 or 3, probably a 3-element Yagi. A 3-element is a lot more directive than 2-element. You can make one out of an old tape measure. If it's windy, though, that can flop around, so not so good. But if you're doing pedestrian fox hunts, then that can be tape measure one is quite robust. Now, the big problem is the receiver. If you've just got a Baofeng handheld as a receiver, that may not be good enough by itself. You could put it, even if you, because when you get on top of a fox, the problem is the signal's so overwhelmingly strong that that it's really hard to cut the signal enough. Even if you almost short circuit the antenna connection, if you've got a cheap receiver that leaks RF, then even that's not good enough. So you might have to put the receiver in a box or something. Now, of course, a problem with FM receivers is it's hard to hear when the signal is weak. You can put an attenuator in front of it to cut down the signal so that when the signal is noisy, then you can more easily gauge its strength. There's some, if you're really seriously into fox hunting, there's some sniffers made by O'Brien VK3 VK3YNG, and these are the basically, you could probably say they're the top fox hunt sniffers in the world, probably. Anyway, I know that people at Mount Gambier go fox hunting, they use them a lot. So yeah, you can, if you're seriously into fox hunting, use dedicated fox hunting receivers, and they're light and portable. So yeah, as far as and then of course there's different types of fox hunting. There's pedestrian or in vehicles. You might be with a group of people. You might have to have an antenna on the vehicle. So yeah, don't be caught by police and doing silly things on the roads. Otherwise, you'll be heavily delayed, and other people get to the fox first. Anyway, that's enough about fox hunting, I think, for a little while. Do you have other hobbies? Yeah, I do have a few. Yeah, so radio is not my only thing. What have I been doing? Well, I haven't been on the air a great deal. It's been a bit cold. Haven't gone portable on HF for, I don't know, maybe almost a month. Had the odd contact on 2 meters FM. Number one, portable antenna. Well, the one I most use often is an end-fed half wave, 20 meters of wire and an antenna coupler. But if I want to do specific things like work DX into Europe, then other antennas are better. If I can be bothered, which is not very often, a very good one is the bobtail curtain on 20 meters, basically 3 verticals. It's bidirectional, gives you really good low angle radiation. Otherwise, the half square is pretty good, almost as good as the bobtail curtain. Now we've got 9 people watching, so yep, so numbers are building up, so that's good. And if you've just turned on, I'm Peter, VK3YE, and yes, I am live, so you can ask me a question. And of course, in the United portable antennas is very topical because it's field days. Here in VK, we've got VHF, UHF field day next weekend, and so I don't know if I'll do anything for that, but you can take a small beam or something and have some contacts mainly on 2 meters SSB, other bands possibly as well. HF field day, yeah, don't forget to like. Don't forget to like, everyone. Yeah, of course. HF, then for me it's wire antenna. Some field day people go really seriously into it and take trailers and trucks full of antennas, and some with antenna masts mounted on them. But generally speaking, I'm only out on a field day. Our field day was back in March. Just trying to remember, did I do a video of the most recent field day? Anyway, if I haven't, I've got videos of other field days in previous years, and usually I take something pretty small and light and have lots of contacts. Something I should mention, I've been doing a little bit of construction. How's the economy doing right down there? Well, unemployment is pretty low. Historically, it's almost at lowest levels. Main thing I suppose people are worried about is inflation. We've got a thing, even though it's possibly not necessarily the season anyway, but the price of lettuces in particular is quite expensive. Some of the fruit and vegetables, their prices have gone up quite a bit. So yeah, some of the prices are a bit higher. There's talk of interest rates going up. I think there's been some interest rates going up. So yeah, for people that are really on really just making things meet, I think there's some cost of living issues there. So yeah. There was 4 days in May. Now that was held last month. It's usually held on the same time as what was the Dayton Hamvention. Anyway, that's a QRP gathering, and there was one of the things there was Hand Summers was there. Apparently there was a competition that they're trying to get the most amount of power out of a 2N2222 crystal oscillator. I'm not sure if it's restricted to that transistor, but anyway, it's a very small transistor. How much power can you get out of it with a crystal oscillator? Anyway, there's sort of a bit of a record where that people try and bring their crystal oscillators and see if they can get more out of. Anyway, there's a real Hand Summers G0UPL of the the kits fame, QCX, that sort of thing. Anyway, Hans has set a new record. Have a look at his YouTube site. Just trying to remember the channel name. Anyway, G0UPL Hand Summers, and it might just be Hand Summers. Anyway, there is a really good, really detailed explanation of using 2N2222 transistors and the crystal oscillator. He gets amazingly something like 4 watts output just from those 2 transistors that are normally rated at only a few hundred milliwatts. So, yeah, that's really, really worth watching. And I might do a video on this separately because it's a push-pull style of crystal oscillator, and the approach has been, I've been looking at all these old books. I've drawn a few circuit diagrams there. Anyway, the circuitry type goes back to, I think, about the 1920s. The benefit of the push-pull oscillator is it doesn't have, I think it suppresses even harmonics, so its output is a bit cleaner than a lot of crystal oscillators. Anyway, I've been messing around with various circuits, and I haven't been trying to get the amount of power coming out as Hans did, but it did work. And in particular, I was trying this free-running oscillator, and then you put a crystal in it via a winding on the coil, and that when you adjust it, it sort of locks it onto the crystal. So that's been a bit of fun. And it's a sort of oscillator that works almost first up. So with 2 transistors, I tried various tuned circuits from 40 megahertz down to about 1 megahertz, and it worked fine. Anyway, that's pretty much the only experimenting I've done lately. I should get on and do more of it. Now, if you've just joined in, ask me anything, and I'm Peter, VK3YE. What is okay? Hello to LU8ACH, Alexandro. Best band for DX. Well, we're now at an interesting time where the solar cycle's improving a lot. 20 meters, if there is a band that you're likely to work DX, probably 20 meters, but it can get fairly crowded sometimes during contests. Sometimes it depends on higher bands like 21, 28 megahertz can be good, particularly for north-south paths like Australia to Japan on 21 megahertz is quite effective. I would imagine that for South America, working the US on bands like 15 meters or even 10 meters would be quite common. At night around the grey line period, sunrise, sunset, quite a few of the bands perk up, but 7 megahertz can be quite effective. 10 megahertz as well. That's mainly CW or digital modes on 10, but that can sometimes be an effective band. The bands are starting to come good. So there's potential there in the next few years. Okay, numbers are creeping up to 13, so that's good. As far as the field day, one of the thrusts of field day, particularly in the United States, is the promotion of amateur radio things. So it's almost like an open day for ham radio. I've done a couple of videos about operating amateur radio in public, so it could be worth looking at. Some people get really nervous or whatever about it, and might not even operate portable for that reason. I've never really had any big problems. But prepare yourself for some interesting questions, though, from passers-by, and that can sometimes, in some of the conversations you can get there, can sometimes be more interesting than on the air. So yeah. Videos coming up. Well, my latest video has been on pirate radio in Australia. I think I was copying from Ringray Manchester, another channel, also one of my favourite channels, M3HHY, and he's got a lot of videos. In fact, there was one just came up this morning on the UK pirate radio scene. So I've been trying to have similar videos for pirate radio in Australia, and by that I mean pretty much any illegal stuff, whether it's FM broadcasting or CB or other stuff. Ideas for a 20-40 meter manpack mobile antenna. Now, when you say mobile antenna, I wonder if you mean pedestrian mobile. So if you're having to use it while you're walking along, or just something that I presume that's what it is when you say manpack. Or have a look at my website. There's pretty much 2 or 3 options. One, you can use a magnetic loop about 90 centimeters in diameter that can work on both 20 and 40 meters. A bit unwieldy, or you can use a vertical in your backpack. So yeah, have you made an RF signal generator or signal tracer? Okay, while walking. Yeah, I've had one. I've done one. I think I called it the Squeaky, which was an audible RF signal tracer. It was more like a field strength meter, and the audio pitch rose in frequency as the RF got stronger. So I suppose you could modify that as sort of a signal tracer. Or you could just have a diode and an audio amplifier, or an RF probe, even, a diode and a capacitor and a multimeter that can give you an idea. Though it won't give you an idea of the waveform of the signal. You might need an oscilloscope for that as you probe along. Yeah, antennas while walking. To get back to the previous question from Nick, yeah, either a magnetic loop or a whip. Whip antenna, 5 meters long, is a quarter wavelength on 14 megahertz, which is good. You can add a loading coil if you want 7 megahertz. I've gone for center loading, and that's just used a fishing pole mounted in the backpack. The issue there is ground system. You can use a trailing radial that can be a bit unwieldy. Or just something dangling in salt water, which luckily the bay I'm near is salt water. The tides are not high, so you can be walking in that ankle to knee deep water, and I've got some excellent results for that. Glider, next kits are not really kits. True USDX and QRP QCX. I haven't had personal experience of them. I've had good reports on the QCX, the True USDX. I think that's the genuine one. Yeah, there's quite a few fakes out there. I forgot its call sign now, but there was a guy who did a video comparing them. I might have mentioned it on my Facebook page. But yeah, they look good for portable budget operating. Do you have a schematic for the tuner often used in the videos? Yeah, different types of tuners. Have a look at my website. I think there's like about 10 different tuners and links to videos and stuff. I'm just trying to, our website is VK3YE.com. And when you go to antenna projects, portable antennas, antenna couplers galore. There's a lot of stuff there, but basically an L match is just 2 parts, a variable capacitor and a coil. whose inductance you can vary. So that's all it is. There are some other types of tuners I've used, like there's pi type, there's balance type, there's T match. Most often it's the L match. And up to 16 people watching. So hello to those who have just joined. I'm Peter VK3YE. American call is AK3YE, and you can ask me anything. And now, what have I got coming up in videos? And hello to PY2SNN in Brazil. Well, videos coming up. Well, the next video in a few days. Generally speaking, if I do a lot of videos, I have produced quite a few videos. I generally space them out a bit. Anyway, I'll be having a couple of videos coming up on the Yaesu FRG7, famous receiver from the 70s. And hello to PU1OWL, yeah, Pinto. Yeah, a couple of videos on the FRG7 that uses a particularly ingenious way of making sure its frequency is stable, called the Wadley loop. So I'll go to that in a lot more detail. There's also, I'll have a bit more on the fox hunting series. I'll talk about, I mentioned before, an attenuator. I'll talk about a really, really cheap attenuator you can build for when you're almost on top of a signal, and that can work with a very cheap handheld, like a Baofeng handheld, so you don't need anything fancy. And then I'll have another pirate radio video. In fact, it's been amazing. It's been, even though not many people have watched the pirate radio videos, I've got some really good responses and emails and all that sort of thing that's just made it worthwhile. And there's been an amazing amount of pirate activity in Australia in the 2010s. So my next pirate video in a couple of weeks will talk about that. And I've been doing some circuit bending as well. I haven't had many circuit bending videos lately, but circuit bending is where you get a cheap bit of electronics. It could be a toy organ or even a little module you get on eBay for a couple of dollars. In fact, there was one thing where you can get five of these modules for like $2.50, including postage. So these little music modules. So anyway, that's coming up in a future video. Oh, and then there was this this solar helicopter that I bought and broke. So yeah, I'll be talking about that. That's next month. Anyway, since now there's another question. Love someone to sell Pixie kits in other bands beside 40 meters. Yeah, well, why? Pixies are for masochists, really. Yeah, they're good to learn how to solder. But yeah, for a band like 20 meters, where it can be crowded, the Pixies only put out a few hundred milliwatts. The receivers are terrible. Even worst of all is they're crystal controlled. I did a video lately, crystal controlled. If you want to get contacts randomly, is absolutely hopeless. You've got to be very lucky. DX is going to, and same with micro keychain kits. Like, yes, it might be cute, might be tiny, but you still need to have a big antenna if you're going to get contacts. So it's no use having anything that's really tiny. Now, Christian, a couple of questions. Any recommendations on radials counterpoise for a squid pole vertical? Well, you could just use various quarter wavelength radials. You have a few. Elevators is probably better. Something I have done videos of is a ground tuning unit where you've got a mat of aluminium foil. I've just used it with book covering over it. And then there's a ground tuning unit, like an antenna coupler, but a series tuned circuit, and you adjust it for maximum ground current there. And that mat is over the ground and it couples into it, and that's worked quite well. Hello to Alan K. Thanks for joining us. Now, another question, Efhw Antenna without a toroid? Absolutely, yes, yes. All you need is you don't need to use your what is it, 49-1 or 9-1 or whatever, which is what the toroid people do. All you need is to make a L-match antenna coupler instead, and you certainly do not need a toroid for that. You can just use turns of wire around. You could use a toilet paper roll. You could wrap, say, 15, 20, maybe 30 turns of wire around that and have a tap every 2 turns with an alligator clip. That's your variable inductor. And then a variable capacitor, which you adjust that, and that can and that will give you an L-match antenna coupler. You'll be able to operate not only on 40 meters but other bands as well with your NFED. So definitely don't need a toroid, and just use an air round coil that you can vary. Ground tuner, building rooftop. Well, if your rooftop is metal, maybe you could just tap onto that rooftop for your ground. That might form quite a good ground plane. Mostly antenna questions. So I've been looking at the weather, and it seems to have been pretty hot in the northern hemisphere. Europe's been going through heat waves. Maybe I should do a thing where someone should have a waterproof transmitter or something, so you can just go into the salt water and operate it from there without any fear of it being getting wet. Maybe just have it on a floaty type thing that also supports a vertical antenna. Probably easier to build a CW rig. Could even modify a Pixie. Concrete patio. Okay. But you could still maybe use some radials or ground match, something like that. I did a video a few years ago on a tuned counterpoise that was basically 2 telescopic TV antennas, and then again a coil that you adjusted, and that seemed to work quite well. And that was a video when I was on the beach, so this was probably about a metre or so above the sand. And if you've just joined, I'm Peter, VK3YE, and you can ask me anything on a bit of a focus, I think, on portable operating, particularly with the field day in the US. So I'll put some various portable hints and tips on my Facebook page. It's VK3YE Radio Books on Facebook. And talking about the books, there's links to them. I've written various books on antennas, portable antennas, hand-carried QRP antennas, and more hand-carried QRP antennas, and also a bit on portable operating. There's also beginners books for the US, ham radio Get Started. If you're starting in amateur radio, that could be useful. And in Australia, there's the Australian Ham Radio Handbook. So have a look at my books page at VK3YE.com to see if any are of interest. And it's about 10:30 here in VK. We've been going for, I think, about half an hour. Biggest power I've used in my life. I have run 100 watts. Sometimes I've got an amplifier somewhere. Maybe it's only 80 watts. I've never run anything more, except I'm just trying to think. If I've been at a club station or something, I've probably run, I think that's possibly had more. But generally speaking, about 100 watts. And most of the time, much less. Okay, I think things seem to be drying up. So, we'll just wait a little bit just in case there are any more questions, and then I might call it a morning as it is here. And hello to Ian, VK3YE. Yeah, I think we worked not long ago on 2 meters. Yeah. In fact, that reminds me, have I turned up? Yeah, usually I'm, for people in Melbourne, I usually monitor 146.5. I usually leave the rig pretty much on all the time, except it's sometimes if I leave it on at night, I'm woken up in the middle of the night by someone. So I sometimes turn the volume down and can't quite remember have I turned the volume up or not this morning or yet. Anyway, I will. Tunable rock mite from 10 years back, the high mite QRP kit. Well, most recent, I haven't built many QRP kits lately. I have reviewed some of the kits from Oz QRP, a double sideband rig. Just trying to think what is, they're quite big rigs. They're in a quite big chunky box, but you can get them for either 40 or 80 meters. I did a review video of them, and yep, they were very successful from Oz QRP. There's also the Micro Bit X. Doesn't need a lot of construction, but you do need to be, well, there's an idiot there, so we will hide user from this channel. And okay. Okay, let us hope that we have got rid of all that. It's okay. Yes, absolutely. So Micro Bit X was one rig. I haven't tried it. It does operate on various bands. From Ham Radio Dominica, 1011 4-element Yagi. Will I make it to Australia on 10 meters? Quite possibly. Although 10 meters is a very, very volatile band. We have heard, we've certainly contacted people in the United States on 10 meters. Probably around this time, late morning, is probably a good time. It's very volatile. We've got beacons in Australia. Have a tune between 28.26 and 28.27. Quite a lot of 10-meter beacons in Australia on that particular segment. And we've also got a one on 28.2 in Perth. So if you can hear those beacons, then you might have a reasonable chance. And also, most of the CB activity here on 27 megahertz is on channel, what we call it channel 35, which is 27.355 lower sideband. So there's pretty much activity on there all the time. So if you hear Australian accents on 27.355 lower side, then 10 meters is sure to be open. Low to Radio Nut, SSB, QRP kits and circuits. Yep. Well, there is one or two like the Oz QRP. There's Leon's got an SSB kit as well as double sideband. Now, I don't know if they're still going. I think it's Walford kits in the UK. I think they might have some double sideband type rigs. But yeah, no, nothing like having a contact with a SSB transmitter you've put together yourself. Hello to N5VWN in Northern California. 40-meter vertical using a 6-meter squid pole. Yeah, well, I would suggest a center-loaded vertical. If you have a look on my website on the RAID tenor, I actually use a 5-meter pole, or might be a bit over 5 meters, and with the loading coil switched in, that works quite well on 40 meters. So yeah, 6 meters is not enough for a full quarter wavelength, but a center-loaded vertical would be fine. And yep. Well, you know, the council allows up to 6 meters. Well, if you had, say, an 8-meter pole or something like that, and you said it was temporary, or you could easily take it down, then maybe you can get away with a couple of meters more, especially as squid poles get so much thinner up near the top. Okay. This is Ask Me Anything, and I'm Peter VK3YE, and yeah, we've been going for nearly 36 minutes. So yeah, I want to decrease my low noise full. I don't have a ferrite core noise on receive yet. Well, I suppose just experiment with different sort of antennas. Maybe make a relay box so that you've got one type of antenna that works well on receive and the other that works on transmit. So yeah, if you have a relay that's tied to your push-to-talk connection, then you'll be able to have 2 antennas. And in fact, that's what the really experienced DXs do on 160 meters. They have a separate receiving antenna optimized for low noise and a transmitting antenna optimized for best efficiency. And the two aren't necessarily the same for transmit and receive. So yeah, just have a switch box. Double bazooka. I don't. Yeah, people have. I've read mixed things about double bazookas. You know, I'm not sure if they're that much better than just a simple dipole. Yeah, some people say delta loops because they are an enclosed antenna. You know, that might help a little bit. Or even a small receiving loop that you can turn around and null out interference. Ferrite cores from old TV high voltage transformers, not actually sure. Yeah, ferrite has all different, you know, some different characteristics. I can't remember whose channel it was, but I think there was a video on trying to measure different ferrites for different purposes. Can't remember who it was. Yeah, mag loop for receive and switch TX for dipole. Yeah, that can work. Now, just before we round off, just have a look at through the recent surveys. There's been some interesting surveys I've been doing on YouTube. We'll run through the recent ones. I asked people about Baofeng transceivers. In fact, a lot of people responded to this. 225 people. And I asked people if did the first Baofeng transceiver they got, what's happened to it? And in most cases, 2/3, 66%, it's still going strong. Then the next most popular, 13%, got put in a drawer and forgotten. They seem to be pretty reliable though, like only 8% of them broke and another 4% had a battery that died. So apart from that, most people's Baofengs are still going. And then finally there is 9% that got sold or given away. So that, yeah, that was just a little fun poll that I ran on my YouTube, on the community tab on the YouTube channel. Yeah, then the pirate, because I've been doing some pirate radio videos, I thought I'd ask people about it. And well, 65% of people, maybe they're all goodies, or maybe some of them are liars. But anyway, 65% never pirated. Another 33% though pirated and were never caught. So they were smart in their piracy. And then 2% pirated and got a knock on the door and were caught. So, yep. So a few pirates did get found out. Then I also did a video. Yeah, looks like I typically get about 200 people respond to these things. So then I asked about people in their family or household, whether they tolerated your amateur activity. And yeah, 71% tolerated it. Another 19% liked it. So around 90% or more either tolerated or liked your amateur activity. So you weren't too much of a pain at home for other people. And then there was even 4% who wanted to become amateurs, but then there was a 5% disliked your amateur activity. So yeah, so yeah, maybe they're doing hamming a bit too much. So yeah, power line noise, yeah, that can be a real pain. One of the reasons to go out portable and try field day. Another reason is, and I was surprised at this, I asked people what was the tallest amateur tower or mast they had at home, and biggest number, nearly half, 48%, had no towers or masts at home. Next most popular group was they had something up, but it was only 6 to 12 meters. That was good enough for what they wanted. That was 29%. Then 7% had 13 to 20 meters mast, so that's a decent height. Then there were 3%, only 20 meters. Yet when you tune on, 20 meters, a lot of people running big Yagis, big towers, and they're the only people that, unless conditions are really good, the only people that were here. Anyway, about 3% of people had your big masts of 20 meters or more tall. And then there was another 13% that only had small poles of 3 to 5 meters. Yeah, I've been was also asking people about VSWR, and oh, there's another comment there on the Northern Summer. What are your QRP portable plans this season? So yeah, there's a few good comments there on SOTA activations and field day and various parks. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, I haven't operated a park much lately myself, so I really should. Now I think people have pretty much asked what they wanted to, so ask me anything, VK3YE, up to over 40 minutes. So thanks all for joining me, and if you're in field day, have a good time, stay safe, and enjoy your operating. And thanks for joining me. And yep, there'll be a lot more videos. So keep an eye on VK3YE on YouTube, and have a look at various books as well. So thanks all for joining, and good night.